Hi, everyone. Thank you for joining us tonight for the Board of Education meeting. We apologize for the delay, and we apologize that we're starting a little bit later. The Board of Education was really proud to join here at the high school today, this evening, for the National Honor Society ceremony that took place in person out on the field. So we appreciate the public accommodating our later start time because we as the board thought it was a special opportunity and important for us to be able to join for as much of that ceremony as we could, and congratulations to all of those students. I will at this point turn things over to Dr. Stankiewicz for the superintendent's report.
Great, thank you. So part of what I was going to talk about, was everybody turned down and muted?
Mute.
Mute.
Okay, maybe that's better. I think it was me. I thought I muted, but I guess I didn't. Sorry. Yeah, part of what I was going to talk about was it was finally incredible to actually attend an in-person gathering celebration of our students, which was terrific. National Honor Society tonight at the high school outside. I'll tell you, it was a beautiful evening. We may have to have it outside every year. It's a good thing, but congratulations. We had over 70 inductees tonight, which was terrific. And went a little longer than we thought, but that's okay. It worked out very well. So it was great to have all those kids and parents be able to enjoy that together. And I think that's more of that to come, hopefully, and that's a good thing. Another thing I just wanted to mention was, so today we submitted our grant application for ESSER II. That's the grant, federal grant that we went over at the last meeting, where we gave a synopsis of what we'll be spending on that. That was a all in about $1.5 million. This last Monday, we received our allocation for the ESSER III, otherwise known as ARP. Lots of acronyms. But ESSER III, we're going to receive just over $3.3 million, which is great. And as we discussed sort of the last time, we are very much of the mind that we would like to tackle the remaining HVAC systems at the middle school, which were not done in the referendum and really are probably the last unit ventilators in the district not to be completely and fully upgraded to the newest systems. So we think that is a very appropriate use of those funds. And Ken, if you want to get into a little bit more, I'll kind of pass it to you a little bit, because we don't think that will cover the entire cost. But that grant, by the way, that application is not due till November 24th of this year. So we have many months to do that. But as part of that, we do have to put together a return to school plan, a safe return to school plan, which, of course, for those of us who have been operating for quite some time in what we believe to be a very safe manner, we'll be presenting that in the next couple of days, because that has to be up on our website by June 24th. One of the upcoming board meetings, we'll be discussing that. I can tell you that our safe return to school plan will look very much like what we are experiencing right now in school. Pending, whatever executive orders come out, if any. So just that's what's coming down the pike. But Ken, do you want to maybe just talk about the balance of that?
And of course, we're going to need to go through a complete process, starting with professional services, starting with an architect, and then of course a full bid process for a project. But just a preview would be it's not only the unit ventilators, the HVAC there, which was rebuilt a little ways back, but they have not been completely replaced like everything else in the district. They were rebuilt. They were the first ones to be rebuilt. So they were kind of refurbished, but now we're looking to upgrade and replace them. And not only the HVAC units, but also the window wall. If you could picture the intermediate school, there's the second floor window, first floor window, and it's actually a window wall in between. So it's all connected. It's one piece. And the unit ventilators, on the first floor, it's a ceiling mount. So if you're in the classroom, it would be, of course, connected to the ceiling. And if you're on the second floor, it's a floor mount. So that's why, so they're together. If you can picture, that's the way it works. So we would be replacing that window wall, which insulation value, everything is old and needs to be replaced. And the 2 unit ventilators for each, really for the second floor classroom and for the first floor classroom. So right now, the early projections are about $4 million. So, but now we'll go through the process of an RFP for an architect, and then we'll have, we'll get, better, more firm, more detailed projections. And then of course we'll have to go to bid to get actual pricing on what the project will entail. So if you're doing the math in your head, so the federal funds will not cover the total amount of this project, but that's where we've discussed that capital reserve. And so we can go, it'll be about $600,000 out of our capital reserve. And I'll put this all together for the board so you can see, where the pieces are coming from, but it will, come together to accomplish this project. So it'll be capital reserve and it'll be the federal funds to try to accomplish this.
Sorry.
Yes.
Ken, do you remember the last time that these were refurbished?
It was one of our energy projects. I think it's probably about, I'll have to get the exact number, but I think it was about 10 years ago.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
And Kim, what do you think about in terms of timeline for this project?
From the early, definitely not this summer, it would be hopeful for next summer. The window walls will take about 6 months just in delivery. So we want to we would start getting the process going, and then we would get everything done really this summer and out to bid and then award so that delivery time we'll have it for next summer and install.
When you
And we-
said federal funds plus the 600,000 in capital reserve, are you saying that you want to use ESSER 3, all of ESSER 3 monies for this?
Well, yes, but there are some nuances in which we're going to have to, because of some of the guidelines.
Yeah.
We
Right.
can't, there's some mandatory things that we have to, so we're going to have to move some things from the ESSER 2 and the ESSER 3 or the ARP. So we're going to have to split it up a little bit.
Some of the HVAC would come out of ESSER 2 because you have to use 20% of ESSER 3 on learning loss. So, but it's, it's 6 one, half dozen of the other. It's all the same pool of money ultimately. So some of the money will come out of ESSER 2, and some of the things that we had in ESSER 2 we'll just put in ESSER 3 that pertain to learning loss. But it's nothing different than what we've already expressed that would be part of ESSER 2.
Everything will be
So-
the same. It's just a matter of,
Yeah, it's a little shell.
of where what pots it goes into.
But we could choose to do 40% of ESSER 3 for academic programs if we chose, and not do HVAC improvements using federal ESSER COVID funds, correct?
We could.
Sure. Both of them meet the the qualifications of those monies. It's, priorities.
Ken,
Yes,
that was
Irene.
going to be my question. So there are guidelines that most of the money I thought had to go for learning loss. And will there be someone to hold us accountable? Will they come in and check what we've spent our money on?
There's always that as part of federal.
I didn't hear that answer. You were
Yeah,
so-
that's always part of federal grants. There's
Well, I mean,
always.
do they do an in-person inspection?
Oh, no.
No.
Not usually, no.
They just ask for a
Unless
report.
they find that, every once in a while, there's an audit for federal, like we went through a Title I audit a few years ago. But mostly it's it's reporting. Well,
Report.
there's reporting to the board. There's, I think there's a 6 month I think there's a requirement that every 6 months we have to do public presentation, basically at a board meeting to talk about where things are and how things are going. that kind
But
of
Ken,
thing.
don't we still have to submit a plan to the state for approval?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, so
Yeah.
we have to submit a plan to the state, so the state will say whether or not our use of the funds meets the requirements of the funds.
That's
Oh,
part of the grant,
absolutely.
that's part of
Yeah.
the grant application. right?
Mhm.
I don't know. I have a hard time saying we're gonna put $4 million to HVAC when we have such learning loss and like significant issues in academics and supports that we are now saying we're gonna put that on hold and not use this free money that we're probably never gonna get again.
We're using,
I
we're
don't-
using,
I think the
uh,
priorities aren't-
out of,
What are we putting on hold? I don't.
yeah, I mean, as part of these funds, we're doing a significant amount over the course of the next 3 years. I don't think we're losing anything in terms of addressing the needs of students over if we're using this money in that fashion. I mean, we're doing years worth of programming, after school programming, summer increase in summer programming. I mean, all the things that we laid out, that's going to happen over the next, we have to 2023, in some cases 2024 to use these funds over the next so many years. I mean, you got to, we want to be very careful about using funds that would have, like personnel and things like that for some of this, because eventually that would have to come into the budget if those are positions that are going to stay. But, I mean, any issues, any learning issues that have been a result of the pandemic, we really, over the next 2 to 3 years, we should be able to address those things very well and successfully.
Yeah, and that's the funding cliff that we talked about before, where you have, if you need a balance, a one-time expenditures it's really, pie in the sky what you want to look for, because you don't have that funding cliff. If you have too much recurring expenditures, if you're not going to be able to afford them in 2 years when this funding is over, then it becomes a problem for your budget. So our plan was to try to do both. And it was to try to do enough one big one-time thing that's clearly a need, and have millions, $1.5 million of really recurring items that our budget, the plan would be to absorb the majority of that by the end of the grant period.
I think part of ESSER 2 and 3 and ARP funding's mandate that we have stakeholder input. And if we're saying we get 4.8 million from ESSER 2 and ESSER 3, and we're using 4 million of it on facilities and 1.5 on academics,
It's not
I mean,
4. It's not 4 million.
It's not 2.4.
it's 1.5 and 3.3. So
No, we're
added-
using 3.4
Right, that-
plus 600 from capital reserve.
Right.
okay, so 3.3 on facilities and
3.4 and 600 from capital reserve.
and then how much on academics? 1.5 million?
The balance.
I mean, I think if we were to put this to the people, I can't imagine so many parents being like,
I think we'd also have to explain it in the context of the deferred maintenance of the physical plant of our
I
facilities.
get it. I
And that
understand
the ventilation system at the middle school was something that was very clear that needed to be addressed up to before the pandemic and through the course of the pandemic.
Mhm.
And we have a responsibility too, to make sure that our facilities are here for the next 20, 30, 40 years to properly be able to house a safe environment for the kids too. We would love to be able to do all of it, right? But we also have to look at, as Ken said, this is a one shot, right? So when you do budgeting for government, you have to look at one shot expenditures and one shot funding revenue sources and see how you can balance those two together. And I think we have to look at all of it. But I think, what happens to many government bodies, school, municipal, county, state, is that you defer large capital projects like this until there's a crisis, and then you don't have the funds to pay for it. So I think we have to be financially responsible in thinking about those things too, where it's maybe less interesting than other things that we could do, but it might be responsible for us to do.
Yeah, and as part of ESSER 3, Ms. Hayes, you're correct. As part of ESSER 3, there's a stakeholder input piece to that, which really would consist of, discussion at a public board meeting would satisfy that.
But
And
satisfy that versus, what's in the better interest of our community. Those are two different things. We can say, oh, well, we everybody has the right to go to a meeting versus are we really engaging our parents?
Well,
and
however
saying,
the-
"What do
however
you
the
want us
board-
to do with this $4 million?"
well, however the board would like to engage stakeholders is certainly up to the board. I'm just saying that I can tell you that overwhelmingly districts are using public board meetings to serve in that capacity. I know that from my roundtable county meetings where it was said, we're going to use a meeting to do this by pretty much everyone. But if the board would like to go in a different direction, it can certainly do that. And that is, from what I understand, that has to be done before the application is submitted. So,
And that's
once,
June 24th,
no, that's by
November.
November 24th.
November 24th.
But, I mean, we may submit prior to that, but we have up to that time.
Do you plan on giving us some, so
A report.
let's talk about the fact that we'll have some kind of vetting process here. Do you expect to give us, like, here's our options that we have, and here's the things that we're considering, and here's the things that will impact
PowerPoint,
budget
something.
and things that do you plan on kind of walking us through what those options are that you're thinking through?
We're really thinking about the HVAC and unit ventilators at the middle school.
Okay.
That's what we're telling you. But, I don't know.
Well, maybe
what we're
specifically
thinking.
the programs that you are going to be spending the money on for academics, even if you made a chart, this much to HVAC, this much to the program, something for us to see, something for the public.
That's what we did last meeting, where we put together, we're going to spend it on this with the
And
dollar
nothing
amount.
has changed. Everything is.
No, that's
Can we
what
get
we're-
a copy of that? Because that's not on the, in board docs.
we can get it up on board doc, sure.
You can email.
I thought it
us.
was up there.
I don't remember seeing that either. I'm glad. Thought it was me. Okay.
Sure.
Are you going to talk more about summer, or is this time for summer?
We're approving people. I mean, I certainly can. Summer, we're moving forward. We still are looking for some staff members at each level, but we're almost there. We've reposted in some areas, and the letters for middle school are going out, I think, tomorrow in terms of the kids who have been identified. Middle school, our elementary school, I think the emails are going out. Either I think they went out today or maybe late last week. And same with the high school. So that process has started, and we're very close in terms of staffing. We believe we will be able to get either all or very close to all of the staff that we are looking for, and we anticipate those programs starting. I know in terms of numbers, we have right now identified at the middle school, for example, about 200 students that we're going to invite. We won't get all of those kids. We normally invite about 130 and get 90. We'll invite 200 and probably get 150 plus. So we will serve, a significant increase in number of students at the middle school. It'll be an increase similar to what I spoke to a few weeks ago at the elementary school. If there's any parents who are interested in summer programs, they can certainly reach out if their child hasn't been identified. And if there's certainly room in those programs, I don't know that we would turn anybody away if there's room for any parent who's interested in the summer program. So we feel very confident.
Would you agree with that? If a parent wants summer school, we won't turn them away?
No, what I said was if a parent is interested, if their child has not been identified as perhaps in need of summer assistance, but if a parent is interested in that, they should reach out to their principal and discuss the options. And I know in the past, and I know it will absolutely be our philosophy in the future, this year and in the future, that if there is room, we will be happy to service any student who's looking to be able to come to our summer programs, if we have the room. To my knowledge, we've never not had the room before. So I think, if some people want to reach out, we can certainly work to accommodate them.
And will transportation be provided for those if there is room?
We provide transportation to our summer programs. Yes, absolutely.
I'm sure you read the Commissioner Alan McMillan's letter on the 26th to school districts about summer. How are we taking into account all the things the state commissioner wants schools to hopefully implement for the summer into ours? She specifically speaks to enrichment, and it doesn't seem like we're doing a lot of enrichment. We're just doing like remedial help. I don't think we're doing any enrichment, are we?
Well, we're doing arts enrichment. We're doing, absolutely, we're doing STEM enrichment, arts enrichment. That's all part of the grant funds that we have. So absolutely, that's happening.
So we're doing like a theater program for 6 weeks for kids who want theater.
I know we have dance going on. We have a variety of different arts programs going on. I mean, once again, a lot is dependent on which staff members are able and willing and available to work this summer. But I think there's I think there's a lot of enrichment happening as what happens every summer. Every summer we retooled our summer programs a few years ago, going from being purely remedial to a combination of building skills to enrichment activities. So I think enrichment is a very big part of what we do every summer, has been and will continue to be.
I'm confused. There's the Spartan Ready for the elementary, there's the middle school, and then there's the high school.
Mhm.
Those are our only 3 summer programs, right? Aren't they all for kids who need help, as opposed to, like, for example, Newark has 60 summer programs. Separate from the remedial one, they have who wants to take dance, who wants to take this, who wants to take STEM. So we have STEM and art and all that in these remedial programs.
No,
correct?
we have STEM programs going on. We have, and once again, we don't, summer programs and who we invite to summer programs. It used to be a situation where you failed, you come to summer school.
Yeah.
We stopped that. We started inviting a variety of kids, some of whom struggle academically, some of whom are looking for other types of academic environments. It's a wide variety of students and how they're identified and certainly, particularly in this year, we want to identify kids who have struggled, no doubt about it. We certainly don't, we're gonna absolutely look to service and make sure we can service kids who've struggled more so than a student, perhaps who's looking for, more gifted and talented program. But, certainly what we built into the curriculum of our summer programs over the last couple of years, along with any kind of remediation that a student might need, is enrichment built into those programs. So, if we're looking, if a student has done well academically and is doing well academically and is looking for a way to jump ahead, I would recommend that they call their principal and talk about what they're looking for and see what options are available to them. But, in terms of, I hope we would all agree. I mean, we just sat and talked about trying to use more money for learning loss. And that's exactly the point, and why we are getting a lot of these funds, and what we do every summer is identify those kids who are most in need of academic assistance and not just make it about remediation, but obviously building the skills for those students is what's key for them returning and being successful the following year. So, but I think if anybody, like I said, if anybody's interested in summer programs and they haven't been identified, I think they should contact the principals and see how we can offer to help their child and what they're looking for.
Jim, did you have anything else in your report, Dr. Spinkwitz?
No, thank you.
Ken, Mr. Jannerin, is there anything else in your report?
Just 2 quick things. Thank you, everyone who came to the intermediate school playground ceremony. The slide was certainly a lot faster than I suspected. I mean, not for me, but for the board members that went down it. It was.
Did anybody else get the video of themselves that Janice's kid took? Holy cow! I showed that to my kids. What a laugh they got.
Yes. Sloan's perspective of people
What?
coming down the slide. Sloan's perspective of people coming down the
Yes.
slide, giggling the whole time.
So just to thank the Robert Wood Johnson Foundation again for their large donation for the inclusive playground. It was really a great thing. So I just wanted to mention that. And then lastly, next week we have slated, if you remember our solar analysis that's been going on. So we'll have the architectural firm come in, Spiesel Architectural Firm. They'll come in at the June 8th meeting and give a little PowerPoint and an update as to all the investigation that they've conducted regarding solar options and our roofing. Of course, roofing is a big part of that. So we'll have that next week. And that's all for my report.
Thank you, Mr. Janron. We'll move to public comment on agenda items. All motions are posted on the bulletin board, the district website. At this point in the meeting, we will now conduct the first of 2 public comment sessions. The first session will be open for public comments on agenda items only. The second session will be at the end of the meeting and can be on any topic. If anyone from the public would like to make a comment or ask a question, please send a message via the chat function to the help desk and Ms. Conway will assist you. Ms. Conway, when you have an opportunity, please let me know if we have anyone in the queue.
President Fuller, there are no commenters in the queue at this time.
All right. Seeing no one who would like to make a comment or ask a question, we'll move through the agenda with a reminder that there's a second public comment at the end of the meeting. For action items, approval of minutes, Mr. Weinstein, please.
Thank you, Ms. Fuller. Move to approve the meeting minutes in accordance with Board of Education bylaws number 0168, recording the board meetings for the regular meeting, May 18, 2021. Can I get a second?
Second.
Thank you. Ms. Beal.
Okay.
Any comments?
Any questions? Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Any abstentions? The motion carries.
Thank you. Moving on to financial management and resource services, Mrs. Torello.
Thank you, Mrs. Fuller. We have 13 items this evening. 8.1, move to approve the use of facilities as per the attached memo dated June 1st, 2021. 8.2, Board of Ed and Administration will discuss the acceptance of the Sustainable Jersey for Schools 2021 EDF Climate Corps Program Grant. 8.3, Board of Ed and Administration will discuss the submission of the grant application for the 2021 Safety Grant Program as described in the amount of $40,251. 8.4, Board of Ed and Administration will discuss a contract with Brett Denovi and Associates for behavior and educational consulting services for students at the rate of $50 per hour for a clinical associate and $130 per hour for a behavior consultant for the 21-22 school year in accordance with the attached. 8.5, Board of Ed and Administration will discuss a contract with Invo Healthcare Associates to provide physical therapy and speech language pathology services for the extended school year, July 1st, 2021 through August 13th, 2021, as needed at the rate of $81 per hour in accordance with the attached agreement. 8.6, Board of Ed and Administration will discuss a contract with Behavior Therapy Associates to provide consultation services for a rising 9th grade special ed student. The total anticipated cost for 23.5 hours at $200 per hour is $4,700 for the 21-22 school year. 8.7, excuse me, Board of Ed and Administration will discuss the award of contracts to the following for the 2021-22 school year as listed below. 8.8, Board of Ed and Administration will discuss the award of contracts to the following doctors for the 21-22 school year as described below. 8.9, Board of Ed and Administration will discuss the award of contracts for the following professional legal services for the 21-22 school year as described below. 8.10, Board of Ed Administration will discuss the Chamber of Commerce letter dated May 6, 21, as per the attached. 8.11, Board of Ed Administration will discuss the contract renewal for food service management to Sodexo School Services for the 21-22 school year. The minimum financial client guaranteed return for the food service program will be a surplus of $45,000. The guarantee is unlimited, and the fixed price per meal for lunch is $3.33, and the fixed price per meal for breakfast is $3.33. 8.12, Board of Ed Administration will discuss the adoption of the Uniform Minimum Chart of Accounts, Handbook 2R2 for New Jersey Public Schools, and the implementation of the school budget for the 21-22 school year. And 8.13, the Board of Ed Administration will discuss the purchase of district computer, maintenance, security cameras, equipment, and other budgeted items from the following vendors utilizing the State of New Jersey Purchasing Bureau contract on a year-long basis as needed and budgeted in the 21-22 school year as per the below. Mr. General, do we want to vote on 8.1?
Want to do that first? Or you want
Before
to
we
discuss
do-
it?
Yeah, we can do 8.1.
Any,
Can I get a second on 8.1?
Second.
Facilities?
any questions on 8.1?
Hold on a second, I'm sorry. There's so much. On 7.1, we're on?
8.1.
The use of facilities.
No, sorry.
Okay, so 8.1's no questions. Okay, this is for 8.1, Mrs. Beal.
Yes.
Mrs. Gilman,
Yes.
Ms. Hayes,
Yes.
Ms. Paralamas,
Yes.
Ms. Telerico,
Yes.
Ms. Tortorello,
Yes.
Mr. Weinstein,
Yes.
and Ms. Fuller.
Yes.
Okay, the motion carries. Okay, can I just go through the rest quickly and then, okay. 8.2 is a good thing. This is the EDF fellowship. If the board remembers, we applied for this grant. This is a graduate student who comes to, well, they no longer come to the district. We did this about 5 years ago. Back then, they physically came to the district. Now it'll be virtual. So we'll have virtual meetings once a week. And their goal is to look at energy efficiency throughout the district. They'll look at our bills, they'll look at several things. And in the grant, we specifically asked for them to be, to give input on, number one, our solar project that we're looking at. 2, possible HVAC that we may be looking at. 3 is the Sustainable New Jersey certifications for them to help with that. In which we'll be doing a lot of this summer. And there was one more, electric, how can I forget? The electric school buses was another, that's, one of the priorities that's my favorite. But so those were the things that, along with just a general overall energy efficiency look, that he will, dive into those things and give us feedback, input, and maybe some grants on any and all of them. So I think it should work out. And at the end of it, Rite is his name. We've had a kickoff, a Zoom call. And at the end, he'll come back to the full board and give a little overview of what he's learned and any recommendations and anything that we can use going forward. Hopefully some grant funds. So that's the plan there. And thank you, Ms. Hayes, for some of the little push on that one. So that's good. Okay, next, the safety grant program. This is our insurance carrier, and we get this every year. There are restrictions on what we can use this money for. So mostly it's cameras, either on the bus or in our facilities that really go towards the safety grant. It's pointed for the use of safety programs. So that's where we'll be using those funds. And then 8.4 to 8.9 are all professional services. most of them are regular professional services that we approve every year. In May, we discussed a little bit about the process where we go 3 to 5 years for everything, whether it's for banking, auditors, insurance brokers, legal services, architects, school doctors. And if you remember in May, I had suggested going for an architect services because hoping that we may have a project coming up. And then also for our insurance broker, Gallagher, Kathy Passantino, maybe some of you know her, but she's been with the district for a while and she's done a good job. And remember, this doesn't mean that we're changing. It just means that we're going on a cycle to go out to an RFP, a request for proposal or request for information where we can, really look at everything else and see if the services that we're being provided with now are services that we want to stay with. And historically, we've done that on either 3 to 5 years, and we've rotated them through. So that is why I suggested last month that we go to the longest standing ones, which would be the insurance broker and then also the architect. So we don't do them all every year. It's on a 3 to 5 year basis is what we've historically done.
So, Ken,
Yes.
I know there's probably some conversation about a few of these, but if I can start with 8.8 for the doctors.
Okay.
As part of our ongoing discussion about these contracts and renewals going forward, we talked a lot about the doctors last year, and I think in the last 15, 16 months, what role have these doctors played in helping us deal with the global pandemic? Spoiler alert, I think I know the answer. And how do, there was question of how we justified these expenses last year. And given what we've gone through in the last year, and I don't think that these folks were engaged, involved, and it's not necessarily what their contract is for, right? But there were certainly not the normal things that their contracts would involve them with going on, right? Is this something that we want to look at, the necessity and the breadth of it going forward?
Well, if you remember, we did reduce their contracts last year, if you
Yeah.
remember, when we had that review.
Yep.
Because, in essence, we weren't, there was no one physically here from March to June.
Right.
So we prorated their contracts and reduced their contracts. So we did that. Going forward, of course, I would have to go to the nurses and principals and ask that question as far as have they done more work now this year because of that, which I would assume that they have, but I don't know. So I'm not in the building every day, but I would certainly have to take a little time to get that information, of course. And of course, these are all, discussion. That's what this is for.
Exactly.
Find out any questions we have, and then I can go back and we can get more information for the board. So I wrote that down, so I can definitely find that out.
Good.
I appreciate that.
Irene, I'm sorry.
Ken, that was what I was going to ask also. Did they do any in-person physicals for any of the sports, which we did run in the spring? Were they able to do in-person physicals?
They did physical.
I would assume they did.
They did physical.
Do we get a breakdown though?
What do you mean? How many?
How
High
many
school.
physicals do they do for the high school? How many?
I mean, the comparison from last year to this year.
Uh-oh. Yeah.
Yes, those are lighting sensors.
Oh, oh,
Is it
that why you
affecting
went-
the picture?
No, I don't think so.
No, it's fine.
So what do the doctors do that we contract with?
What do they do?
Yeah.
I mean, there's a whole job description. I can basically take everything that was sent out last year and send it out again if you'd like. But they do, the majority is physicals. They interact with the nurses, confer with the nurses. There's some child study think teams.
What do you mean physicals? Don't kids get those at their own doctor?
Not all. kids
Not
have
all,
it.
We
no.
have
Yeah.
we have
Often
many
with
kids who
kids
do
too.
not.
I can't hear. Sorry.
Not all kids get the physicals at the doctors.
Don't know.
Yeah.
capability.
Some come to us.
And then, but they review all, even the physicals that are done at doctor's offices, they have to review those and sign off.
To make sure that.
Correct,
Okay,
yeah.
all right.
Can we also, oh, I'm sorry.
I was just gonna ask, I don't know if OSHA requires it, but for new hires, do the new hires also have to have a physical, and are these the same doctors that provide that?
They could go to their own doctor if
Or-
they choose,
or
or
utilize
they would use these doctors. Yeah, so we do require it as a condition of hiring.
Can we get a breakdown per physician, please, of they're required to look at what the nurse, what reports they do. If my son breaks his arm at the middle school, the nurse does an incident report, and the MD, if I'm not mistaken, is supposed to sign off that everything was kosher and the proper procedures were whatever followed, and that's the same medical thing he would have done. So can we get, how many times they did this per doctor?
Say that again. So you want to know how many times they talk to a nurse, or?
No, how many reports did they sign off on? Like, how much oversight do they really have over the nurse?
I don't know if something like that would necessarily be something that they would absolutely consult with, unless there was a situation perhaps where there was an issue with return to school, if a student needed some kind of special accommodation as a result of an injury or something like that. In general, I don't know that they would necessarily consult with the school physician on
So
something
I don't
like
get what
that.
they do besides a physical.
I'm sorry.
I don't get what they do besides doing physical.
Yeah, well, I mean, a lot of it is consultation, and there are a number. I mean, we have students who have medical conditions and things like that, so they'll do a lot of consultation. That is a lot of what they do,
Okay. Can we
but
get
not
that breakdown?
necessarily. Yeah. I mean, we certainly can.
Can we get an accounting of the utilization of their contracted services? Thank you.
Sure.
And my final question is, were any of them on the task forces?
No.
So we have 3 medical doctors and they never attended a task force.
No. We had all of our nurses on the phone.
I know.
And Ken, I guess for me, it would be if you know of any, complaints or anybody that had a, any kind of situation that didn't turn out well. If you knew anything about that, that would be helpful. But I'm assuming you already.
I'm sorry, Jeff, I can't hear
Can't
you.
hear you
Uh,
either. Scream.
Shout or take it.
I'm assuming if there was some kind of complaint or situation that we should know about, you would have told us on one of those, right?
It may not have, come to me as a complaint as a business administrator, but I have no knowledge of any, no. And I know we went through this last year. I think it was the exact same. So I can probably and I don't know if there's anything new, but I can resend the emails I sent to you last year with the contracts and everything, the job description and contract. And I think we actually asked the principals that question last year too. So if we want to go through that again, we can do that again too.
And are we
it was a
obligated
different
as a
year.
district to have doctors? Are we required to contract with doctors outside of for providing physicals? Jennifer, required of students?
I'd have to check, but I would think so. That now, how many
Right.
in the scope? And I don't know why we wouldn't. I don't know of any districts that don't have
Okay.
a doctor, so I'm not really sure why, what the issue is. But I can ask the attorney to check code to see if there may be for the standing orders. I mean, I'm sure that there's a school physician in the law.
Okay, if you could find out, that'd be
Yeah.
helpful. Thank you.
Okay, any other questions on any of the other discussion items? Update
8.9, the professional legal services. Did you address that yet, Ken?
No, I can tell you, and I can send you around the breakdown. That was 2 years ago where we went to an RFP for legal services. And we did that for all 3 sections, our special ed attorney, our personnel attorney, and then some in general counsel. And I have a write-up that we, back 2 years ago, and we had a committee. The board president at the time sat on that. And then the central office administration went through interviews. We had about nine candidates. We interviewed 7, and that was the process we went through. And again, it's usually a 3 to 5 year process before it would come up again to go through that process again. But I can also send you the write-up from 2 years ago that basically, says what I'm talking about.
But we're not going to vote on this tonight because we need further information, correct?
It was just
Yeah.
on for discussion. It's not on as an action item.
Okay.
Right, we can get
Because
more
we-
information. I can give you the more information regarding the process, and we can go from there.
And as we discussed in executive session, we'll have future conversations, both in executive and in the public session regarding that 8.9.
Okay. All right. Any other on professional services? Okay, then the next 810 is Chamber of Commerce. Their letter seems certainly more upbeat than they've been in the past. So I think that's a good thing. They've hired someone, so the office that we rent to them, had been dark for months with no one there. And now we're starting to see some life there, so that's good. And so the request before the board is to for a little more time as far as rent forgiveness for the chamber. They do have their luncheon in which there's, as they state in the letter, where they're still honoring 3 Ocean High School students with scholarships. Now last year, and I know Ms. Gilman brought this up, last year I believe we did have a few board members that went to
Ms.
attend.
Parlamas and I and Dr. Stefanowicz.
Yeah, so if that's still a desire, I can see if we can get board members there. I believe that was because there were students that were being honored from the district, that was a covered expense. That's what we did last year. So I don't know if there are any, if the full board is okay with that, if that's, and if Ms. Gilman and Ms. Parlamas, was that who it was? Or just you two are interested, or?
I just need to check my calendar, but I definitely
Okay.
I'm
would
sorry,
go.
Miss, what are you?
June 8th, the Chamber of Commerce, Ocean, is awarding some scholarships to high school students, and they're having a luncheon
Oh, I'd
at
love
the
to go.
Renaissance.
Yeah.
Mr. Weinstein's interested.
Oh, well, first of all, I don't want to, if 3's a crowd, forget it.
No, not at all. Not at all.
Not at all.
Right? I mean, yeah.
Okay, I can check tomorrow and see if I can arrange that.
Send an email. Thank you.
Okay.
Ken, can I just ask, so you're saying that the past few months they have not used the room, the office that they were,
I think the only time they've used it is really in the past month.
okay,
Before that, they were not used, it was dark, they did not use it at all.
okay.
No.
Yeah, I
They
mean,
didn't have anybody, they couldn't afford to pay anybody. The businesses, of course, weren't doing well. So it was, it was the pandemic that, now they're hoping that they're starting to do some fundraising, having some events, and they're hoping that the businesses now will be in a better situation to contribute so that they can, they did hire someone, and now they'll be able to pay us rent going forward after this.
so is
request.
your impression from your conversations with them that this will be the last letter that we get, that they recognize come September 1st, that we're probably not looking to get another letter like that?
I can make that clear to them if that's the desire of the board. That, I
Probably
can
getting to that point.
let them know that this is about it.
Yeah, I'd be okay
I
with that.
I did get that message from them, but
Yeah.
I couldn't promise you that.
That's how the letter reads.
What's that?
Yeah,
It's how to let it.
Yeah, that's how it
but I
is, right?
think
Yeah.
past letters have read kind of like that too.
What's
Past
that?
letters have read a little bit like that too. So,
Well, September 1 seems like,
yeah, so maybe just make that clear.
yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. All right, so then that'll be on for next week. Also, the food service contract, this is a 5-year contract again, and this is in the 4th year, so that process will be next year with currently it's Sodexo, but there's a formal process. The Department of Agricultural is a standard RFP, and we've had in the past, I think Kip Brodigan did it 1 year, and I'm not sure who did it. Was it Kip last time? We would normally have a representative from the board involved in that process for the RFP for food services. So, but this would be the contract. The guarantee is the same, the 45,000. So that's a good thing. And I think Sodexo has done a pretty good job so far.
They've done a wonderful job,
yes.
and I hope that you will commend them for us for the food supplies they've provided for the entire community.
Right.
They've
Yep.
done a fantastic job.
Yep.
They really have.
And I'm sure that they will, go through the process again, and then that'll be an evaluation that we'll have to do, next year. All right, and then the last two are items just for implementing the 21-22 budget as far as the uniform chart of accounts and just technical things for approval to implement next year's budget, as we're now in that process of purchasing and getting things ready for next year. So any questions on anything in finance?
All right, hearing none. Thank you, Ms. Tortorella. Instruction, education, and student activities, Ms. Gilman.
Yes, there are 2 items, one action item and one discussion item for instruction, education, and student activities. 9.1, professional development. Move to approve the attached memorandums dated May 27th, 2021 and June 1st, 2021. RE staff professional development activities in accordance with district policy 6471 and NJAC 6A:23A-7. The attendance at said activities is fiscally prudent and will promote the delivery of instruction and/or will further the efficient operation of the district. Reimbursement for travel and related expenses shall be according to the Department of the Treasury guidelines and NJOMB Circular 06-02 and A-87 as listed below. 9.2, the instructional council update. Although the council was canceled, questions were submitted, and the Board of Education and Administration will discuss the update from the instructional council, and the file is attached below. Dr. Stefankowitz, I know there was a question about plans and when they would be, the new format would be submitted for staff.
Yeah, Ms. Weldon, right after, we canceled the meeting because it was the day after, with the passing of our staff member at the middle school, we felt
Mhm.
appropriate to not have the meeting in person. And there was not a lot on the agenda. Ms. Weldon sent out direction to the entire staff the next day on revised lesson plan, procedures for next year. And the other questions were, just some building specific things that I think were very easily answered. The biggest issue was the lesson plan
Mhm.
template, which, has gone out, and I don't believe, any questions would go to the supervisors and Ms. Weldon. I'm not sure, how, if there's been a significant number of questions related to that at this point, but, it's actually a streamlined process that is different. So obviously, anytime there's anything different, it's different, right? But it is a streamlined process that we believe will really help staff moving forward in terms of their lesson planning. Any other questions on any other item?
I have a question about the instructional council. If there are normally representatives from every school, correct? But on this agenda, only if they wanted to bring something up from their schools, would they be put on?
Yeah,
the agenda?
each building's representative really ask the whole building whether they have any items. So if there's nothing presented for a particular building, it's because that building did not present anything to the representative that they had an issue. And then sometimes we as a district will bring things as items.
So when is the next meeting?
Probably not till next school year.
Not till next year.
Yeah.
And how often do they meet?
Usually probably what would you say, Irene, about every month or two during
Yeah.
the year?
Usually,
Yeah. So about 5-6 times a
Six
year.
weeks. I'd say every 6
every
weeks.
couple
About,
months.
yeah, about every 6 weeks, yeah. So about maybe 6 times a year, give or take. I mean, it's probably been, I would say since the pandemic, we've definitely met less than what we normally meet, I
Mhm.
would say. You know,
Last year, I think you had mentioned the district would be working on greater diversity amongst the instructional council members. Just wondering where we stand on that. I can't tell if everyone on this list is the same people as last year. I don't know all these names.
Yeah.
So,
well, I mean, that one, the members of the instructional council in terms of the staff come from the association. So we really don't have, we really don't, it's up to the association who the members are. I can certainly speak to Mr. Riley about that for next year.
so we have no say on who gets on it except for our board members and your administrators.
Correct.
Okay.
All right. Thank you, Ms. Gilman. Moving on to personnel. Mrs. Paralamas.
Yes, I'd like to make a motion to move item
I'm sorry.
10.1.
Well, did we, I think 9.1.
So we got to vote. Yeah,
Right,
have to
we
vote.
didn't vote on
I apologize. 9.1.
the
Number one.
professional development.
Okay, so we just need a second on 9.1
Second.
first.
Second.
Oh, thank you. Okay, 9.1, Mrs. Beal,
Yes.
Mrs. Gilman,
Yes,
Ms. Hayes,
And I did have a question on that. I'll abstain because I didn't ask my question.
and Mrs. Parlamas,
Yes.
Ms. Talarico,
Yes.
Ms. Tortorello,
Yes.
Mr. Weinstein,
Yes.
and Ms. Fuller.
Yes.
Okay, the motion carries.
Now, thank you, Ms. Gilman. Moving back to Ms. Paralamas for personnel. Thank you.
Yeah.
Sorry about that, guys.
Yes, I'd like to make a motion to move items 10.1 through 10.12. Do I have a second?
Second.
Ken?
Okay, Mrs. Beal,
Yes.
Mrs. Gilman,
yes.
Ms. Hayes,
I'm sorry, can you repeat what we are voting on?
10.1 through 10.12.
Under personnel.
on personnel.
Yes. Wait. Okay, yes.
Mrs. Parlamas,
Yes.
Ms. Talarico,
Yes.
Ms. Tortorello,
Yes.
Mr. Weinstein.
Yes.
And Ms. Fuller.
Yes.
Okay, the motion is carried.
Thank you, Ms. Paralamas.
Sure.
And moving to policy, item 11.1. Now, Mr. General, will you be handling this? Leading this?
I think Dr. Stefanowicz,
Dr.
Well, want me to read it, and then Board of Education Administration will discuss the participation of homeschool children in our district's athletic program. Copy of policy 2431, athletic competition is attached.
So several weeks ago, we had a gentleman who had contacted me, who is a Ocean Township resident, who's has a child who is currently homeschooled, has been homeschooled, and it's my understanding that this child is going to the high school level, and the district's policy is to not have students who are homeschooled be able to participate in athletics and extracurricular activities. The policy is attached. You can see it. It also includes students who attend other schools that are private or parochial schools. It does not include, of course, vocational schools, as that by law, students by law, if they go to high-tech communications, MAST, what have you, have to be given access to athletics. They do not have to be given access to extracurriculars, but there are some things like theater and band and some of those things that we have allowed. We did discuss that at the board level a couple of years ago and decided it would, because there were some concerns that were brought up about it, and we felt we'd continue to monitor it and that it wasn't having such a negative impact on the overall school community that we'd continue to monitor the situation. State law changed maybe 10 years ago. There was a time when homeschool students were not allowed to participate in extracurricular activities in their district. That law changed about 10 years ago to leave it up to individual districts. So obviously at that time, our district maintained that they could not be. But so that parent brought it to our attention, and that parent did come to a meeting a few weeks ago to try to, want to bring up their situation. They couldn't stay on, if you recall. They had to leave before they could speak. But we did say, and Ms. McGovern, I think, brought up last week to put it on as an agenda item for discussion. So it really is, it really is up to individual districts. I mean, I will tell you, there's pros and cons to it. I've worked in districts where we've allowed it. I will say that there typically are not a ton of homeschooled students that this becomes such a major issue. Unless, of course, that person is taking the place of the child who's now not playing as a result of that person. It's a big issue for somebody somewhere potentially. So that's part of it. Another part of it is that depending on how a child, at the high school level, there are very particular rules that relates to NCAA eligibility, how many credits a student has to have before they can go to the next grade and the next level, what level of athletics they're eligible for. And for some homeschool programs, it's hard to determine exactly how many credits a child has achieved. If they're in a program, yes.
But that doesn't hurt the program, it hurts the kid, right?
I'm sorry?
That doesn't hurt the program, the team that they're playing for. It hurts the kid for any NCAA eligibility. It doesn't hurt the team that they're playing for, right?
The student wouldn't be out. Yeah, I don't think it's an issue for the
Right,
team.
It's not an issue for the team.
It's an issue, right? So for the individual student, so there's some of those things. So I mean,
So where does insurance come into play with a homeschool child?
in terms of if they're hurt in
Are they
a
covered? If they-
yeah, I mean, they would be covered under student accident insurance, right?
Yeah, absolutely. Yep.
Yeah.
they would-
Yep.
okay.
Because if it's the board policy to allow it, then
Okay.
just as a student who goes to a vocational school comes back and is covered under student accident insurance.
So.
And by the way, I think this person is also asking about extracurricular activities as well, like band. So it's not just athletics.
And do those have to be treated the same? Or the
No.
policy can look at things differently?
They don't have to be looked at as the same. They
I'm a
can,
little- I'm a little curious as a family that's a tax-paying family
Mhm.
that lives in the town. And if the situations are very minor and pure in their intent, meaning they're, homeschooling for whatever reasons they have, why take that side of the equation? That the one or two incidents, why would we take that side of the equation of that they're not eligible to use?
I'm sorry, I'm not understanding your
You're
question.
saying that we don't want them to be part of.
No, I didn't say that. I said it's in our policy.
It's our policy, our
Yeah,
current policy, right?
Right.
I'm assuming you gave us this policy because this is the policy you want us to.
Now I'm giving you the policy because this is our current policy,
Okay.
and it's really for the board's discussion and
Oh, I see.
consideration as to what they want to do
Well,
moving forward.
So just openly talking here,
Mhm.
my my first opinion, because I don't see a big downside to letting kids whose families want them to be homeschooled, to give them the ability to be on teams and to use the facilities that the district offers. I don't see a downside to it. I mean, is there a downside that I'm missing?
Yeah, I mean, well, look, I think there's some perspectives that, you know, that to be part of what we do here and to be part of the team, that the students should be here, should be part of the school community, part of the school culture, walk the halls.
However,
Be-
you have kids in the charter schools, right?
Right.
Who do come back and play
Not
in the
charter
school.
schools,
Not in charter schools. on
no,
the
vocational schools.
on the
Vocational.
counties, right.
Right, by law, right.
Right.
That's law, that's
Basically
protected by
homeschool.
law. Right,
And play sports.
right, exactly, yeah.
But
But
don't we have kids at like Allied, who if they don't have a swimming team at Allied, they can come here? if they're
any
underrepresented?
student, any,
vocational.
yeah, as I said,
That's
and
not- that's wrong terminology.
not charter school, and vocational schools, by law,
The wrong charter is very different.
yeah, we have to, by law, we have to allow students who attend vocational schools to participate in athletics. We do not have to allow them to participate in extracurriculars. We do allow some extracurriculars, not all, some extracurriculars. That is, you know, that is,
I mean, just to play a little bit of a devil's
Yeah.
advocate here, and I'm not really sure how I feel about it, to be honest with you. I mean, the only thing is an outsider might say, or a student might say, that child is taking a varsity spot or a spot that another child who belongs in the school, who goes through the halls and does everything Jim says, could have had. That's the other
yeah, it's a
piece
possibility.
to it.
Right,
That happens
These
with,
are-
that happens with the schools coming from Allied or.
We don't have a choice there. This
Right,
is
we
so
don't have a choice.
Right, right, I
discretionary
understand that,
within the
right,
discretion.
I mean, I'm not saying
Because
that
it's
this
zero
some
sum,
school shouldn't, but it's just.
and in
way
some
of looking
cases,
at
and
it.
in some cases that, you know, maybe it's a team that there's no cuts and maybe it'll
Yeah.
impact the child like
Playing
that, maybe,
soccer,
and but some, it maybe
football,
it will,
yeah.
it won't, you know, I mean, a lot will depend on the individual
Very true.
circumstance of the situation. I mean, you know,
But you can't do it for some and not for others, you know what I
Yeah.
mean? Just because of the team that they want to play.
I mean, one thing we have to, you know, you bring up the Jeff, you brought up the point that, you know, it's a taxpayer, right? Well, you know, taxpayers may send their kids to private schools, right? And we actually, the board had a request several years ago from a person who was sending their child to a private school to come back and, you know, take part in athletics. And it was, now, you know, different Board of Education. And as you can see, it is in policy. It is in this policy as well,
Yeah,
that it
yeah.
states. But, you know, it was a very strong feeling at that time, if you were attending a different school, that not a vocational school, but a private school or something like that,
Yeah.
that, you know, because for example, like say, you know, I go to that private school and,
I don't
you
make
know,
the team.
I'm sitting on the bench in that school, but I could start here or whatever, right?
That I would.
So there's a lot of different situations. I mean, I could tell you, I've worked in districts that have done both. I've worked where it's, now obviously here, we don't do it. I've previous districts where we did allow it.
I mean,
It
on the
really
other
is up
side
to
of
the
that-
discretion.
On the
I
other
mean-
side of that, though, here's a child who is at home and doesn't have anywhere to go. He's
Right.
got no place to play
Yeah.
or do whatever he needs
grow,
to do.
no
So
place
that's,
to
so that's
grow.
the other
Exactly.
piece
Right.
to it.
I
And I
agree.
guess it's a matter of weighing.
Right, and by the way, this is also a discussion item. We don't have to make a decision on this tonight. Obviously, we want to try to do something. I have asked Mr. Todd to kind of survey
Mm.
Shore Conference and that's, you know, the conference that we are in, that, you know, he said they did that a few years ago and it was like a half-half situation. Maybe more, slightly more that don't allow it than do. But I asked him to look into it, to see how many do it, how many are not doing it roughly, and what are the issues that come up on both sides of that equation. For those who allow it, what problems do they face, or what, you know, what really great things happen as a result, or, and vice versa, you know?
Do you have an
So,
opinion- Janice, do you have an opinion on it?
I would lean towards not supporting this, but I haven't made a final decision on it.
Can
I think
speak?
it's-
Oh.
I mean, we certainly could have the individual come like next week. I think this is
I
for
think
more
that's a good
discussion,
idea.
obviously.
But I
But
think too, I
you
don't
know,
want to make this decision
it's
based
about-
on one.
it's not about one person,
Right? I don't want to
correct.
make this decision
How many-
based on an
approximately how
individual
many
person
district
and their
hours?
skill set or whatever.
it's not, we don't have many homeschool students. I mean, it's probably less than,
Well, that was going to be my
it's
question
a handful
too.
or so.
That,
If that, not, they're not at the high school level.
Under 10, district-wide.
Yeah.
but I think that might change going forward, you know, with, especially if there's no virtual allowed next year, that some parents
Okay.
might opt to homeschool their children. So I think we need to put something in place because although it's one now, I think that in the future it could be more than one, especially after
Well,
year we
right. I
had
mean, we
this
have,
year.
we do have something in place. The
Well,
question
yes,
is whether
but
we want to
that we
change
may
it.
want to
Right.
revisit it.
Right. I mean, you know, to me, I saw this as an initial discussion. And, you know, like I said, I'd like to get that information, Mr. Todd. I can have Mr. Todd come next week and he can share his thoughts on it with you. I can have Ms. Kasuba as well as the principal come and talk about it. I mean,
think
I've
that's
discussed things with them and their thoughts. I would like to get some of
What are
that.
you recommending?
I'm sorry?
You don't know what you're recommending yet?
Well, yeah, I mean, like I said, I think as I started this conversation, I think there's pros and cons to it, all of which have been brought up here. You know, I think it, you know, in some, right, you might, do I think the numbers are great and that it would have a significant impact on the entire school community? No, but to Denise's point, if you're that one or two kids who are now didn't make the team and you come to school every day, then it impacts you significantly, right? So,
These are
I mean-
zero-sum opportunities in most cases.
Right.
It's not, you can't both get if you're.
yeah, I mean, right, like, for example, if so for example, if it's in the band, and I don't, just to use that as an example, and there's, you know, one lead, just an example, there's one lead violin, you know, now maybe one of the kids who comes here every day who would have been lead violin is not going to be lead violin, you know? So, I mean, it's just, those are the things you have to just kind of weigh out every.
One, in speaking of a parent of an athlete, there isn't anything wrong with friendly competition. So whether it's a homeschooled student who gets the spot over a student who walks the halls, it's not my place to judge a parent who chooses to homeschool their child, because then you get into, well, is the reason good enough for you, but it's not good enough for me, when they are paying taxes. So it's not like it's someone who is not even in the area but is choosing to. But then I look at it in terms of, we have a policy that we're obviously implementing. I would like to hear more information in terms of pros, cons, legality, anything along those lines. But
Well,
Is it-
legality is, it is allowable, by law, it is
so then
allowable.
at least we know that
Yeah.
part of it.
Mhm.
But then if there are,
But like, for example, if I may, like, so if you are a homeschooled student, we don't supply you with our textbooks. We don't supply you with with a computer. We don't supply you with supplemental materials. We could provide you with our curriculum document, which is a public document, say, here you go.
correct,
But none of the other materials that we would provide a student who comes to our district, we're not providing those materials to the students, right? But, you know, you're on the team kind of thing. So, I mean, that's just another sort of example.
but I
Um,
guess the main point is I look at it in terms of, this is someone who pays taxes, and the taxes do support the school system.
Correct.
I don't believe taxes pay one teacher's salary, as some people like to tout. But I do believe if they pay taxes, the taxes do support the school, then they can benefit from it. However, I'd like more pros and cons.
Okay.
But also, if we have the policy, I don't want to get into the habit of, well, we'll dismiss this policy. We either keep it or we don't, because then I don't want to get into subjective matters of, because it's X sport, I'm okay with it.
Oh,
Or
absolutely.
because
No.
it's this. So we're either going to keep the policy or not.
And
Correct, or revise it. I
Or
mean, it's
revise
part of a bigger policy,
Right.
but absolutely not. This can't be on a case by case, sport by sport. Oh, this is a really good football player, so we want to be okay with this. But
Correct.
this person is not really that good at swimming, so we don't really care about that. No.
Yeah.
It's not based on the quality of the athlete. It's not based on the
Correct.
sport. It's
either
based on
allow
the
it or we don't.
concept of, is this something that we as a district feel is appropriate or not?
And I would make it for extracurriculars. I did see that in there, so I would, whatever we decide when it comes to it. If we
Right.
could
But
keep
remember,
those-
right, I'm a homeschooled student and I'm going to be the student council president, perhaps, maybe. I mean, these are the things, like, we just have to think about that, you know,
Yeah.
And as long as they follow a democratic process,
Yeah.
to each his own.
could
I
be.
just say though, the taxpayer conversation can then be a slippery slope. The taxpayers paid for the turf field, but I can't go and use it without permission. The taxpayers paid for this building, they can't come and use it when they want, right? There are a lot of things that taxpayers pay for through the collective payment of taxes that doesn't necessarily entitle you to usage without restrictions. And if you're choosing to homeschool, there are benefits that you've seen, but there are consequences to it too. So I think we have to be careful about the taxpayer piece of it, because I think, that could have other implications of, well, like I said, I pay for the field, or I pay for this, and we have restrictions as to who can and how can those things be used too. So I think we just have to think that part through as well.
Natalie.
What's our, I don't know the question, the word, but, well, when it comes to discipline. So if someone is out of district playing our team and there's a fist fight between two players, we could out of school suspend our student, but what's the discipline? Like, do we have precedent or grounds to discipline a student who doesn't attend?
You mean a homeschool student?
Yeah.
Well, the only recourse we would have is that extracurricular activity. What's that?
So I couldn't think of the word, recourse,
Yeah.
thank you. So it would be to then remove that.
Yeah, I mean,
student.
remember, because that's the other thing too, any extracurricular activity or sport is a privilege, not a right. So, we would take, if someone was, showed bad sportsmanship, if someone, didn't do the things never came to practice, started a fight on the team, whatever.
Okay.
Really, the only recourse we would have is to say you no longer can be a part of that, just as we might any student who did the same thing within that team.
Okay.
We wouldn't have the ability to suspend them from school per se, as we might do if they got into a fight or something like that.
So can you
Thank
see if
you.
Mr. Todd's available to join us at the meeting next week?
Sure,
And we'll put this back on the agenda for further discussion.
sure. And hopefully by then he'll have some more data.
Well, right, and if he needs more time, then
Yeah,
he needs
yeah.
more time.
Can I just ask one question? Would we consider, for example, just extracurricular or just sports? Because while we've all been talking, I logged onto the New Jersey Homeschool Association, for example, and there's nothing on here about organized sports. It's all like extracurricular, art, drama, da, 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 da.
Right.
So in my initial impression, I'm like, well, there must be a dearth of that, but yet sports is, so perhaps that industry does do this a lot. It goes to their home school, it does do sports. So can we look into it not only from our Rusty Todd, for example, but can we reach out to the
Well,
county's homeschool association and see what do most of their members do? I mean, does everyone, oh, no, we can do arts outside the school, but they got to do sports.
Well,
here.
Mr. Todd is also our activities director, so he would look at all of that and can investigate all of that. When I spoke to him, we did talk about not just athletics, but also, extracurricular. So, yeah, I mean, that would tend to be the extent. I could certainly reach out to other schools to see how many of them, allow in extracurricular activities. I mean, I think that's part of the conversation we're having. But I
But you
mean,
did say we could make the decision. One does not have to impact the other. We could decide. one
no, I
direction
mean, you
for
can
everybody.
really do whatever you want. I mean, the extracurricular piece is really, I mean, but once again, I mean, is it all extracurriculars? Like, for example, if you go to vocational school, we allow you to perhaps be part of the drama club, but you can't go to our prom. You can't you can't run for student council. You can't, some of those things. There's certain more major
Are there
band, like that kind of
differentiators
stuff.
between clubs and activities though? Like, are there clear, is it clearly, are some things clearly listed as activities and some are listed as clubs? Because I was thinking more extracurricular clubs, not activities.
Well, some are connected, right?
Intertwined.
But
Okay.
like student council plans, like class, like, you know, I want to be a class officer for junior class, you know, and doesn't mean like a prom is an activity, but it's part of the class, you know, that organizes it, runs it, and that kind of thing. So some of them are just synonymous, you know, they're closely related. But yeah, I mean, we can make whatever, you know, restriction or, you know, lack of restriction the board is comfortable with. But I do think some of those things where you're starting to talk about like class officers and some of that stuff can get very dicey
No, I
compared to a
consider that club.
compared to like singing in the choir, right? You know what I mean? There was an interesting case, I want to say, when was it? It's probably a long time ago now, because, you know, time flies, but there was a young lady who I think was homeschooled and was going to be the valedictorian of the class. And that caused a significant issue. I think it was in Princeton, maybe,
Well,
maybe 15
What
years
did they
ago.
do? Did they allow it?
Well, I think there was a whole thing where then they found her, they accused her of plagiarism. I mean, it was a whole thing. Yeah. So, I mean, I don't know how it turned out, but I remember sort of the uproar about it saying like, wait a minute here. You
Yeah.
know, you're homeschooled, but you're going to be the valedictorian.
That's
I think it went to the courts and
Wow.
they were going to allow it. So I don't know.
All right, so we'll carry this forward to
Yep.
next week
Yep.
if Mr. Tots is ready and available.
Okay.
If not,
Yep.
we'll schedule it accordingly.
Sounds good.
All right. At this time, is there any old business from the board?
Policies, Ken.
We're working on them.
Can you think about a new date when we can have these out to people? So I'd like to do it before we get to the July timeframe when we go into 2 meetings, right?
Okay.
I mean, can you, is it?
Yeah, I just can't give that to you right now.
Oh, yeah,
but
no. I know,
Tomorrow,
I
I
know.
certainly
It's okay.
can look at it and tell you when. It's just with the new federal monies and there's
Yeah.
a lot going on right now.
Okay, all right.
It's difficult to jump into.
Oh, cool. As
the-
long as you have those
1992
original notes
policy.
from that original conversation.
No,
'Cause
I
that's the thing.
got you.
Okay, cool. Thanks.
Ken keeps excellent notes.
I know he
You
does.
know
I
that.
know he does.
You know that.
I know he does.
That's why I let him do it.
I have 3 questions, and this is why I abstained from earlier, because I wasn't caught up on the agenda. The teacher getting the PD on Wilson training, is she getting the training so that she can teach other people Wilson, or is this strictly just for her? Is she going to be at that level?
It's my understanding how Wilson training works is, you know, that you have to be trained in order to sort of be certified in Wilson. You need to be trained by a certified trainer of Wilson.
Yeah.
So there's certainly, I guess there's no reason that she could not come back and turnkey some aspects of what she's learned, but she could not train someone and then it would be, oh, you are now a certified
Okay.
trainer. You know, she'd have to become a certified Wilson trainer.
Okay. And then the student getting the summer job,
Mhm.
I thought we weren't allowed to pay for students to work for us or something. Remember when we asked if they could run the cameras for board meetings and everyone was like, no, they can't work for us.
I mean, we've had students in the summer, we've had them in a variety of capacities for many, many years. We didn't do it last year because of the pandemic, but I mean,
So at some point, we could get students from the television production studio to run cameras during board meetings if we can pay them.
I don't know.
Yeah, the issue with that has always been getting the commitment and depending on.
Right, I mean, you'd
students.
also, right, I mean, you'd probably, with district equipment, you'd want to have someone here, you know,
Yeah.
a supervisor of some kind. I mean, all of these students have supervisors with whom they work. You know, our tech folks,
Yeah, I mean, they
Mr.
do the
Hall.
football games now.
Right,
I don't know if I would recommend counting on students to do board meetings. I mean, we're recording them now. I don't
Yeah,
know what the issue would
I
be.
thought we
but-
asked this last year, Cindy and I, and we were told that, no, we can't have a student run our cameras, like that's illegal or whatever the rules were. That's what I.
Okay.
Certainly
I
would
don't
never
think it
say
was
it's not
never
legal.
illegal.
We've been doing it for, many, many
Yeah.
years as far as paying students during, specifically in the summer.
Yeah,
Probably was discussion around counting on students to do something that we absolutely need to do. It can't be, they didn't show up tonight and now what do you do?
Right.
So that's usually the dependency is that can be difficult.
and then could you just, I know some parents probably have some questions regarding the attorney issue, but can you, so where do we go from here? Can you just, is there a 3-sentence, this is what we're doing next week? Just so I can get it correct in my head, since it was.
Well, we
We're
talked about the
going to have-
process. It'll be on the agenda again for discussion next week. And there'll be some executive session discussion, and that's it. And then we'll see, next week where we go from there.
And we are removing, okay, never mind, okay.
Is there any other old business from the board? Is there any new business from the board? Ms. Gilman?
First, I'd like to draw everybody's attention, if you haven't already seen the front lawn of Ocean Township High School. And Ms. Minot and her freshman class as a project put flags out on the lawn for Memorial Day, and the white flags were put out for anyone who cared to remember a lost loved one to COVID-19. And I thought that was well, many people in the community really appreciated going down West Park and seeing that, that project. So just wanted to give a shout out to Ms. Minot. And the other issue, and maybe Mr. Weinstein and Mrs. Fuller, I know we had talked about drafting a statement for the board, as many districts do, before allowing the public to have access to, I know that Ms. Conway has the chat open and everybody is to state their name and address, but I think we need to review some of the rules of decorum and what is allowed to be said during the public portion of our meetings, so that we don't have the meetings become too disruptive. And I hope that we will be working on that as a board, or that our officers will work on that, so that we can have things run very smoothly.
Yeah, we certainly can. As you know, some of us might remember, we had an extensive conversation with our board attorney regarding our ability, our restrictions in how we conduct our public comment sessions, and balancing the rights of the public to free speech and our obligations to provide a forum for the public to interact with their elected officials in the administration, but while also protecting, the standards and norms of the district. And unfortunately, sometimes those things run contrary, and we have to often yield on the side of protecting someone's right for free speech. But Mr. Janarone has suggested in the past that we possibly look at the policy that's from the Manasquan School
Yes.
District that we could post on our website. I don't know that we could include it in the language in the agenda. I don't know that we need to read it every time. I think 99.99999% of the people who engage with the board via the public forum are respectful and here to ask questions, make thoughtful comments. And it's unfortunate that those who choose to do otherwise have really detrimentally impacted some of the public comment sessions recently. I hope it doesn't happen again, but we could certainly talk about, reading that in an initial time, adopting something similar, reading it in initial time, and then including it in the public comment language on the agenda, just as a reminder to people of what the hopes and expectations would be. But I think
that's a good idea.
I think most of the people who interact with us are.
Absolutely. But our board attorney did recommend doing that. So I think, and he did mention Manasquan, so I think that would be a good place to start. Take a look at theirs and see if we can adapt it and make it our own.
Yeah. I mean, I think the real thing that happens is when the line gets crossed between somebody commenting and about something, or wanting to state a point, and doing it in a way that's incredibly disrespectful and insulting to some extent.
Mhm.
So, so we just have to.
And that is still always a hard balance,
Oh, it
right?
definitely is. Yep, definitely is.
Can I,
Unfortunately, we hear many a disrespectful
Yeah.
thing.
can I suggest that if you're so inclined to watch the newer Board of Education, I don't know why I watched that on my spare time. This weekend, I watched like 2 meetings, and before each of the 2 public comments, their school board attorney, who is a staff person, read rules for at least 3 minutes. I don't think we would ever do that. It was super, super extensive, but it was like insanely, this is what you can or can't do. So I just found it fascinating that it was 3 minutes long, just a comment. So
Is there any other new business from the board?
no, I do, but I don't want to. Is anyone else happy to go?
No.
I'm still having a tough time with our summer plans, and I'm sure that's obvious. But I don't believe we're doing enough to address the learning loss. And
Can you explain how you define learning loss and what data you're using to support the
well, when we
the
applied for
sentiment
the
of learning loss?
grant, we said, if I'm not mistaken, close to 40% of our students weren't at ELA and math levels as they are expected to be. And from the letter from the Commissioner of Education, she outright says,
No, that was, we used a level of 75 as a grade. So that's not necessarily correlating to that they're not performing at the level at a particular grade level. It's based on a grade on a report card. So, I mean, that's not a great thing. I'm just saying those are two different things.
well, that's not how I remember it, but that's how you remember it. But
I wrote it, so.
I still, well, Ms. Weldon, okay, all right, well, we can agree to disagree, and I'll try to find it as well. But I think we're focusing too much on remedial, and I know what you said, that our remedial encompasses enrichment, but we are suggested highly by the department to expose students, and I quote, to introductory 1, 2, or 3 week pre-course options that can catapult student learning. And we can use summer programming to serve as a pilot to monitor, evaluate, document, and potentially scale improvement strategies that could continue into the following school year and beyond. I just think we have a ton of money that we are being able to play with. And we have a 50-page guideline from the Department of Education issued on the 26th. And it seems like we're just saying, we're going to give 40 more students at each school the opportunity to do remedial, and that's what our summer is. So that's how it appears to many parents from what I have been talking to parents about, and it's a little.
I think it's important
Late
too
as
for
well.
parents to bring those voices directly to the administration rather to an individual board member so that the board as a whole can understand that sentiment. We can certainly discuss with them more. I think a lot of what's put forward in the document from the commissioner are suggestions for districts to think about things differently, but they're not requirements, they're not mandates. So at the end of the day, the district administration will put together a proposal for, they have put together a proposal for the summer, they'll put together a proposal for the use of the funds. We can discuss and we can decide how to move forward. I think I would be very interesting to know how much we hear from families about the desire for additional summer programs of this type. And I think you can certainly contact individual board members, but unless we're hearing from those families to the district to be able to quantify that and to be able to survey that in a measurable way, it's difficult for the administration to make decisions.
But that, you bring up an excellent point. We haven't surveyed parents.
No,
though.
not everyone wants a survey, Alex, but people can, if they're contacting you, if they're texting you, if they're seeing you, they can also send an email to the superintendent or to their principal and make those thoughts known so that they can be quantified.
I don't think
There is
parents know
self-selection
that they
bias
can
in
say-
survey. Parents certainly know they can communicate with the district. If they notify you, your obligation as a board member is to then tell them to address their concerns
I
to
do,
the
and you don't have to
administration.
tell me what my obligations are. I
Well,
was discussing what
We've yet to
we
see.
are not doing. We are not asking parents, we're not engaging them. So how would they know that, for example, Dr. Stefanowicz said if parents think that they are entitled to summer, well, they can talk to the principal.
But of course you can talk to the principal. If you have concerns about your student and how they're performing and think they need additional help, of course you can talk to your principal. Of course you can.
I don't think parents know that they can get.
I think you
extra help in
underestimate
this-
a lot of the parents in our district. Dr.
think
Spankowitz, do you
we
want
don't
to
realize what
address
the
any of the
parents know and
summer
what they
concerns
don't.
that Alex has brought up?
I think we already have. I think, I think that we've put together very good summer programs for our kids and we have identified students and if there's parents who, I'm just repeating myself, if parents have a concern or have questions about summer program, they can certainly contact their principal. And we can work to address their needs. I mean, that's, unfortunately, we don't have the ability to address, everything that would exist over the summer. Staffing is always an issue. And, as I said, we still don't have all of the staff members we need for summer right now. We feel we're going to get either to that place or really close. And, we're going to be able to service a lot of kids this summer, a lot more than we have probably any other summer that we've ever had summer programs. So, I mean, I'm certainly not going to say that what you're suggesting wouldn't be a great thing. I don't know in terms of staffing and in terms of just, actual feasibility and students who would actually want to do it. I don't know that it's as realistic as we'd like it to be. I mean, sure, we'd love to be able to offer tons of things over the summer, but the reality is that, what we've got to prioritize are those students who need the most assistance to try to hopefully get themselves back to a better academic place. And those are going to be the students that we're going to prioritize. But if there are other students who want to take advantage of a summer program that we have, or something that they would like to suggest to us, if it's if we have 2 students who want to do something that would, be in some type of enrichment program, I don't know that feasibly we can do that, and I don't know that that's the best way to use the money, even though, yeah, we have millions of dollars right now, but I don't know that that's the best way to do that. We want to make sure that we address those students who are in most need academically. I think we're doing that. So, but I would always encourage parents who have questions to contact their principals, and they do that every year. So, that's all I can say.
I'll spread the word to ask them to
Yeah.
talk to their principals if they think kids need summer programming, then to talk to their principals.
Is there any other new business from the board? All right, hearing none, we'll move to the second public comment period. As a reminder, if there's anyone from the public who would like to make a comment or ask a question, please send a message via the chat function. We'll go first to Kim Struening. Marianne, if you can unmute Ms. Struening, please.
Yes, please go ahead, Ms. Struening.
Hi, thank you so much. Speaking of all of the various summer programs being offered, do any of them include compensatory education for special education students?
Dr. Spankowitz.
I don't know if Ms. Zona's on the line. I'd have to double check on that.
Hold on, let me see if she's here. I don't think she's on. No, I don't believe Ms. Zona's here.
I'd have to double check on that.
Can you So you want to get back? to-
Yeah, I'd have to.
Okay.
Wait,
So,
so we can't.
Ms. Struening, Dr. Stefanowicz said he'll get back to you. I'm just saying it again because I know it's hard to hear
Problem is, Zona
sometimes.
reach out to her.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Ms. Conway, who was second in the queue? I want to make sure I'm going in order.
Yes, the order I see is that Denise Bond is next, and that would be the second and last person at this point, unless we get more.
And then I just saw Ms. House actually join the queue as well. So we'll go to Ms. Bond and then Ms. House.
Go ahead, Ms. Bond.
And just as a reminder to please state your name and your address before asking your question or making your comment.
Denise Bond, Oakhurst. So first, I want to say that I really didn't appreciate the way you just responded to Alex Hayes. I felt that your attitude was a bit uncalled for,
Thank you, Ms. Bond.
but that's not my comment. That was,
All right, but I appreciate your feedback.
and by the way, no, most parents really don't know about the summer programs, and a lot of parents don't even come on the board meetings or even go to the board meetings because they feel like whatever they say is not even going to matter anyway. So that's usually what happens. And about the Havoc monies that you were talking about earlier, that was taken care of like 5 years ago. I think I brought that up before. And my last thing, of course, when I joined the meeting, I heard something about what school will look like in September. So my last and final question is the masks. I want to know about the masks in September. All right, the public health emergency is ending on June 15th. And so there'll be no public health emergency, which means that nobody should have to be required to wear a medical device over their faces.
Thank you, Ms. Bond. I'll refer to Dr.
Can you give me an answer?
Thank you, Mrs.
We are
Fuller.
going to. I'm referring to Dr. Stefankiewicz to take your question.
Yeah, I mean, at this point, we've received no guidance from the governor's office, the Department of Health, the Department of Education as it relates to what the requirements will be for, face coverings, masks come September.
So is the expectation, though, that we, as we have been doing, will follow the guidance that's given from the state? We won't go further than, masks are no longer needed, we'll move in that direction.
When we receive the guidance, I mean, one of the things that we as Monmouth County superintendents have asked of the Department of Education, the governor's office, is for that, the guidance, and to get it to us as quickly as they possibly can. The Department of Health has put out K-12, guidance for K-12 schools. They've done it throughout the school year. They've revised it as necessary. I suspect that we will get a revision on that, with the new, with the expiring executive orders, and if the public health emergency is suspended. The CDC had just recently come out with new guidance related to summer youth camps. So things are changing very quickly. Certainly have come to learn through this entire process that anything said in May or may not apply 4 months later, and certainly could change 30 times between now and then. So as soon as we get official guidance on that, we'll follow it, and we'll of course make everyone aware of what that guidance will be.
All right, thank you.
Dr.
Thank you.
Can you talk about the school board, the superintendent of Monmouth County's letter to the governor? Can you explain what the position is of all the superintendents?
Yeah, it's simply just it really was to say, what has been difficult for all of us throughout the course of the year is not getting guidance in a timely manner, and sometimes inconsistencies that go on. And I mean, one of the things right now is that there are just inconsistencies that relates to social distancing as what's required for schools as compared to the general setting, general population, mask wearing as it relates to school setting as compared to the general population. So, our group, really, it doesn't take a position one way or the other on any particular item. It basically just says, we need the guidance, and whatever the guidance is, just get it to us quickly so that we can, plan properly and let our, make everybody aware of what the expectations are and go from there.
Was this unique to Monmouth County, or are all county superintendents doing
I can't speak for other counties. I don't know. I mean, that was something that we as a group, our roundtable leadership, put something together and put it out to us for input. And, so I can't speak to other counties on that.
Ms. Conway, let's please go to Ms. House.
Yes, go ahead, Ms. House.
Hi, can you hear me?
We can.
Okay, Liz House, 510 Green Grove Road. I just have a question. I was listening during item number 8.9 regarding the special education attorney. I believe Mr. General said that an RFP had gone out, and typically, I guess it's 3 to 5 years that we stay with the same representative. Did I understand that correctly?
Mr. John, you want to just clarify where we are in that cycle?
Yes,
relates
it's
to
usually
this?
3 to 5 years. They are year-to-year contracts, of course, and that's why that's why it's on the board agenda. But the cycle that we go out to an RFP and interview other firms is usually 3 to 5 years. Yes.
Okay, so my question is, how long have we been with our current representative or special education attorney?
2 years.
Only 2. Okay. Is there some sort of like ongoing evaluation process or a way to track the performance or, measure this representative and if they're meeting the district's expectations with the delivery of services?
Yes, and so Ms. House, how we're going to continue with this item specifically is we'll be having a conversation that likely will be an executive session because of the nature of the conversation regarding this attorney specifically,
Okay.
to get an update for the board and to give the board an opportunity to have a discussion, ask some questions, raise some concerns, et cetera. And we'll likely, hopefully be doing that next week on next week's agenda, but that likely will take place in executive session due to the nature of the conversation.
Okay. So there's really like no formal kind of tracking or anything like that.
Dr. Spinkers, do you want to speak specifically to, because since the administration deals with her more directly on a more regular basis?
Yeah, I think that kind of evaluation is ongoing and based on the goals of the district and when firms were initially interviewed by the board, sort of what the expectations were at the time. And that's something that, we as an administration evaluate each year as to whether those goals are being achieved. And ultimately, each year the board evaluates based on administrative recommendation, and then every 3 to 5 years when an RFP goes out, the board directly interviews candidates. So I'd say it's both a formal and informal evaluative process that really is ongoing. There's no sit down with a checklist and say rate somebody 1 to 5 kind of thing.
Right.
It's more of a it's more of an ongoing evaluative process that both involves, formal and informal discussions.
Okay. So before, the 3 to 5 year, give or take, timeline, if there are some kind of issues or they're not meeting the expectations, I guess that is brought up during contract renewal or?
Yes, and then the board.
Okay,
could always
that's
make
what you guys are gonna do.
Yeah, and the board could always then, vote to not renew the contract in that given year and seek, a new.
Okay, understood. Yep, thank you very much.
Thank you. Ms. Conway, I'm not seeing anyone else in the queue. Do you?
No, there are no more commenters in the queue.
All right, thank you. So that will bring us to the end of our meeting. The board is actually going to return to executive session for discussions related to litigation.
And will not take action.
Yeah,
Personnel and litigation. We will not take action. We will not be returning to public session. So can I have a motion to re-enter executive session and a second?
Second.
Thank you. Thanks, everyone.
What?
Board members.